The FIFA World Cup, professional wrestling, and motivational speaking. What do all of those things have in common? Welcome back to another episode of the Grappling Growth Podcast with me, Joe Testouri. On episode 79, I had the pleasure of welcoming on Ivan Ruiz, the founder of Public Speaking Lab. On this podcast, Ivan breaks down the tactics that you can use to become a better communicator. He talks about the experience he had and why he believes working for free makes sense when you're going up the career ladder. Tune into this podcast, leave your comments below, and I'll see you on the other side. As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Testouri, and the Grappling Growth Podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy. Ivan, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show, Joe. I'm very excited. We were just prepping everything to make sure we were great. I love how pro and professional you are. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. Thank you. There we are. Compliments.
There it is. Yeah, and for all the listening audience, we were talking about compliments before we started. And I said, Joe, if someone gives you a compliment, just say thank you. So, hey, look at this self-improvement, my friend. Look at this self-improvement.
There we go. Talking about self-improvement, what does growth look like to you?
It's such a fun and interesting question. One of the things I've found is my whole shtick is about changing the way we communicate. And I actually watched some of the old, your other YouTube videos. And that question is always so interesting because it's so big. How do you go? Where do you go from there? That's like, when you ask someone that question, you're asking them a question like, for example, Joe, you and me, and I promise I'll answer, don't worry. But first I'm going to try something. If you're going to ask someone, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? It's such a tough question because there's so many ways that can be defined and answered. So when you ask me the question, what do I think about growth? I always try and think about baby steps. When I was in Toastmasters, we had to do a speech about like what your vision of the future. And my very good friend, who's actually a professional speaker as well, he talks like, I want to talk about an age that no one has talked about yet, because everyone's talking about 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. And he's like, I want to talk about tomorrow. And the idea of we think about growth and we think about the future as a distant thing, not about a few hours from now. So when I think about what growth looks like for me, I'm going to give you the answer. And this is something I would love your advice and your audience advice on. Growth for me means working less, but doing more. So right now I'm a speaker. I go and I speak. That's my job. How can I do less speaking, but still make more and be growing as a company when the only product is my knowledge? So let me throw it to you. What would growth look like for a speaker? If you imagine if you were in my world, what do you think that would look like? Like, how could I do it?
Really good question. So I suppose what you're trying to do is you're trying to make your time more finite than it is, because your time's already finite, right? So it's a case of making it more scarce. And you see this with big performers. If Ed Sheeran, for instance, was to perform a gig every single weekend of the year, his rate would probably go down, wouldn't it? But or Elton John, for instance, okay, he retired 2 years ago, and they made a big hoo-ha about his global tour, and he finished, I think, in Sweden. But again, and I think this is the art of high performers. They look at their time as a scarce resource. And you hear people say, I'm not going to sing for free. I'm not going to do this for free. Mixed martial artists, they say, I'm not going to fight for free. I get paid for this. And they make sure that they book themselves 3-4 times a year max. Some guys are crazy. They go and fight once every 2 months, but they break it down. So your question is an interesting one, because it depends on where you're at within your career journey. If you feel you've got your name for yourself, then you're going to be more scarce with your time. If you're trying to build your name, as I am at this present moment, I can't be that scarce with my opportunities in time, because I'm still on a certain journey to a certain level. So I guess I'll flip that question to you and say, on this journey of growth as a public speaker, how far into it do you feel you're at currently?
That's a very good question. And what you said, I want to highlight something that, Joe, I want to come back to. So remind me, if I don't bring it up, can you ask me about this again? How much do you do for free, and why and when? Because I think a lot of times when people are thinking about growth and valuing their time, they are like, well, I don't do things for free anymore. But is that always the best route? So let's go back to that, okay? Let's go back to that, because I think that's a very interesting place to explore, because I'm sure you've had both good and not so good experiences about doing things for free, and so have I. Now,
So,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let's go. No, let's keep
so
going.
looking at comedians are
Sure.
synonymous with doing work for free or going down to the local comedy club. I think where the condition meets the perfect mix is where you're doing stuff from buying perspective as opposed to selling perspective. What I mean by that is, I'm
Hmm.
sure we speak to people who you'd love to do work with, but if you don't feel as though your work's going to be valued, or someone's making it feel as though you need to sell to them and then they're wanting the work for free, then you're going to be way less inclined, as you would be if you went to a children's a school, an underprivileged school where people needed, you know, your arts and talent are going to help those people way more, and it feels as though you're giving back. So maybe that comes down to the ego. We're going down different holes right now.
Yeah. Or what if this, and by doing this thing for free now leads to many more opportunities down the road?
Hmm.
Or let's take another thing, Joe. Let's remove free and let's put below what you think you're worth.
Or would the reverse be you pay?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you a few. Let's break. Here's a few stories about that. Okay. So number one, for your listening audience, I don't know how much of a bio you want. We'll put in the video or whatever. But for your listening audience, I live a couple of random parallel lives. One of those lives is as a professional dancer. I used to be like a professional salsa dancer. I
Hmm.
still do it, but not like as a career. And I'm an MC. So outside of teaching communication skills, I'm that person that when you walk into stadiums, I work with FIFA and
You're
the
going to do a new
Olympics.
intro for the show.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody. Like that kind of voice, right? I volunteered when I first moved to Toronto, where I live now. I volunteered to be an MC for a salsa festival. My worlds collided. And I was going to do it for free because I needed opportunities. I couldn't find work. That one volunteer thing that I did led to a paid MC role. That paid MC role led to a major hosting role for a huge Latin festival. During that huge Latin festival, there was a sponsor that was the Pan Am Games. Someone from the Pan Am Games saw me speak, said, "Hey, we'd like to work with you with the Pan Am Games." Someone who was when I did the Pan Am Games, someone from FIFA was working on the football tournament for the Pan Am Games, said, "Hey, you know what? We would love to have you at FIFA." All because of that domino effect of me volunteering to do something. Here's another one. When I was once approached by a student association at a university if I could come and speak, and they offered me it was like something, it was like, we'll give you $50 for a 2-hour seminar. And if you know anything about speakers, for the listening audience, if you're a keynote person, you're cheap if you're $5,000. If you're a trainer, you're usually in the $2,000 to $3,000 for like a 1 hour kind of thing. That's thing. And they say like, we'd like to offer you a $50 honorarium. And my first reaction, Joe, was, what do you think?
It depends what place you're coming from.
No, no, come on. I saw it. No, no, no. I saw that in your face. What do you think my first reaction was?
You taking the piss?
Yeah, or like, are you fucking mind? Are you crazy? But I took a moment to step back and said, A, they don't know, they're a student association. B, it's another opportunity, and who knows where those opportunities may lead. So I said, sure. Well, what happened? I went to that university, and it was a competition for other universities were there. One of the kids from one of the other universities approached their career center, said, "Hey, I did this amazing seminar with this guy. Can I put you in contact with them?" That university reached out to me. They said, "Hey, a few of our students have commented about you. We're wondering if we could have a meeting." That meeting has been a 5-year client with multiple bookings every single year. That one client, because of those bookings, some of those students have graduated over time, and they've called me, "Hey, I'm working at this company now. We're wondering if you can bring us in." All because I said yes to a $50 gig.
So the big lesson here that 20-year-old Ivan could take, and for the younger listeners here, what's your one golden rule of advice for young people who are trying to make a name for themselves in any industry they're in? Then
This is the double-edged sword. If you're in a creative industry, it's really hard because people take advantage of you. But if you're in under industries, it's also kind of like balancing. But I say yes to everything. Whenever, like for the first 4 or 5 years of my career, "Hey, could you do this?" Yes, 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 yes. And I would make little deals, even if there was no money or little money. I would say like, hey, can I bring, like, for me as a speaker, I wanted social proof. I wanted connections and network. So I said, can I record it? Can I have a copy of all the recordings? Because then I would use that. So I said yes to everything. Now, 15 years later, I say yes to a lot of things. But over the past, I have said no to certain things just because I feel like I will say yes to a certain amount almost a year, or as the opportunities present themselves. If someone comes back to me a second time and wants something for free, that's when I say no.
Hmm.
But for someone starting out, especially if you want to get, like, if you're trying to build a brand around yourself, you got to get as many opportunities as possible to get in front of people, because no amount of advertising will work as well as a referral. So much of my business is referral. I would say, for all the money I spend on a website and everything like that, 98% of my business is referral.
And to that point, this is the same. So previously, before my main business pivoted into AI, we were a marketing agency, a performance marketing agency, and I remember a very famous marketeer. I can't remember his name right now, but he said the product that won't sell organically will not sell with paid ads. You look at it from to the
Interesting.
core. It's a
Yeah.
case of you're you need you going out getting those giving those free gigs, those free engagements. That's your social proof to say I am who I think I am, so I'm not an imposter, and say I am to people as well. And where I think a lot of people go wrong when they're starting out, they think nowadays because they've got a degree, or even scrap that, they watch enough YouTube videos that they know enough about a subject, but it's I could learn everything about building the house that I'm in right now. But until I have that experience, until I've realized that actually this wall's fallen down, I'm not going to be able to in real time say, my wall's fallen down. What do I do? Or that there's an emergency and there's a gas pipe that's exploded. And these are the things that I think maybe, and it's easier to say this generation or the next generation has this bias. And a statistic 94% of Gen Zs want to run their own business. So there's disproportionate disconnect. Yes, we're moving into the creator economy. However, it's understanding we as, and this is kind of deflating the ego a little bit, we have to understand our worth within the market, and the market will tell us our price. So if I try to come and I want to be a speaker tomorrow and I say, no, I'm good enough at what I do, I want $5,000. If someone pays me that, then the market's told me I'm worth that. Happens once, maybe it's luck. If it happens 20 times over, then I'm at the market position. And I think that's the market will always tell you where you're at.
I will also add that, undervaluing also, this is the double-edged sword that I mentioned earlier. It's also easy to undervalue yourself over time. And I think what you're saying, Joe, is over time. So doing things for free always, not a good idea. Starting out doing things for free and slowly, incrementally building a price that the market can handle, I think is a really great way to go. One of the things that I have noticed is over time, I have like consistently undervalued myself, and I've left money on the table many times. But to the same extent, because I'm so much cheaper than most of my competition, I get hired a lot more. So I'm working a lot more. So now I'm transitioning over. And here's another thing to consider for growth. And by the way, before we go any further, you know what I would love to see from the listening audience? In the comments, how many of you think we're right and how many of you think we're wrong? How many of you would feel that you should never do anything for free? Or Ivan's mindset is wrong. No, no, no. You should, if you do things for free, people won't value it, or they'll take advantage of you. Or how many of you think I'm right? And like, yeah, you should totally do it until you get a name for yourself. Let's start a fight. Let's go into the down. Righty, righty, McRight, right. Let's troll. I want to see what people's answers are, because I think this is always something that I personally have had discussions with other contemporaries. When I'm at a conference and I'll meet another speaker. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear that. The other thing I was going to talk about was in terms of how to value yourself. It's so difficult because this is the other thing. Valuing yourself is very hard because no one will ever tell you how much anything else costs. One of the biggest things I always talk about is replaceability. How replaceable are you? For example, we look at the world of speaking coaches. Dude, it is the most replaceable gig. Go on LinkedIn. Someone who recently got fired is now a speaker. Like, that's my joke that I always tell people. LinkedIn is full of unemployed people trying to tell other people how to live their lives. You know? What makes me better than all of them if I'm just a public speaking coach? Replaceability. How many podcasts are there in the world? Why Joe's is better than all the others? If you can answer that question, that's when you can start increasing the price point.
So where you're at right now, you've got the reps under your belt, and you're looking at re-strategizing now. You're making yourself less of a commodity. You're making yourself more of a very
Fair.
valuable asset and a scarce resource, let's say. What's the business strategy looking like right now to
Yeah.
say, okay, instead of charging, let's just say, $2,500 for a speaking engagement, no, I want to do half the amount at $5,000.
Yeah. So let me first break down for all the listeners who want to know like what the business is exactly. Okay, because I think growth is so much dictated by the industry you're in. So as a speaker, there's various realms you can go into. Let me give you a couple of those realms. One is a keynote speaker, like a motivational speaker or like an expert. You come in, you do an hour, 45 minutes to an hour at a conference, and you leave. That is the easiest and most lucrative. 5,000 is the dirt cheap for a keynote speaker.
Just to ask a question on that, why do you think
Yeah,
it's the easiest?
because you just do the same speech over and over.
But just going to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah,
What if you're okay? I'm going to talk about race here. Let's say you need to know your audience. So you're a white motivational speaker. You're speaking to a white audience, black audience, and then an Asian audience. To an extent, you might look at tailoring the nuances of what you say to those people.
yeah. You can tailor the nuance of it. Listen, go to any speaker agency. Most keynote speakers have one or two or three general topics they cover, and they essentially do the same thing over and over, with subtle tweaks, perhaps. They'll reference the conference they're at. They'll reference maybe the general business, but most keynote speakers won't put like tons of time into like figuring out the conference, because they'll come in and speak on a Tuesday, and then on a Thursday they're at a different conference if they're successful. I have been, after watching so many keynote speakers, that this is the thing. This is why everyone thinks it's unique. And we'll keep on this side tangent, but let me quickly go back to the other ones too.
Okay.
The reason you think it's so unique is because you just saw that speaker once.
Mm-hmm.
And what their ideas were like, that's a really great idea. That's really profound. Whatever. Go watch that speaker 3 more times. And you will see the same speech over and over with like a subtle change and a subtle nuance. Not to devalue what they're doing, because every audience that's seeing them for the first time is like, ooh, that was really profound. But you're essentially doing the same thing over and over.
A point on that is,
Yeah.
and this is what I thought before with my business. I thought everything needed to be bespoke. Everything had to be brand new. However, if you went to McDonald's and you went to 10 different franchises and the taste of a hamburger tasted different every single one, you wouldn't say McDonald's is reliable. You'd think this place is inconsistent. And I think to that point, there's a big element of consistency there. You want to know, like, I remember reading a book on brand storytelling by Donald Miller. And if you look at any superhero movie, starts with a superhero, he's having a great day.
You're talking about the hero's journey.
That's it. He finds the love of his life. Something catastrophic happens. She turns against him. And then the audience gets invested, saying, no, you can't see the other side that he can see. He's trying to protect you. And then eventually the bad guy comes out, they win. So it's fun in that. Sorry, you were telling us about the types of speakers.
No, the hero's journey. No. But this is to the second point. Keynotes are the easiest and they're the most lucrative because they're pretty much the same over and over. But it's also very saturated. Everybody and their mom is a keynote speaker. So in order to be a keynote speaker, you have to have a unique point of view on something. You have to have been like, what I always say is like kind of a D-list celebrity. So like you're an astronaut, you survived, like a lot of like athletes and stuff like that. Hey, I went to the Olympics, so you have to be that kind of D-list celebrity kind of thing. Or maybe you're a high school basketball coach who coached, a winning NBA, a winning NCAA season or something for like the Americans. I think that's correct. I'm not a big basketball. To your point about customization, leads us kind of more into that second realm, which is the trainer. So keynote speakers come in and they talk to their audience and they leave. A trainer will work more with an organization and probably have to customize a little more. They might have their key learning modules, as you were saying, not fully bespoke, but key elements they cover. But there's a lot more work and it's typically a lower price point. Because if you're coming in to do training, you're probably coming in for a couple of hours and you're customizing what you're doing for that audience. And just so you know, keynote wise, if you're like super famous and you want to do a keynote, $50,000 to $100,000. If you're like a D-list celebrity that's really good, you're in the 30 to 50,000 range for the 1 hour. I'll tell you this quick story. So I think keynotes are like a little overrated, but if you're a good speaker, you're a good speaker. I was at a conference and this guy came in and I asked the client afterward because we were friends. I'm like, how much did you pay this guy? And they're like, he's 30,000 plus business class travel. Right. And he was an amazing speaker. He had this one story. I know he after watching, he does the same story every time. And at one point he says, I know what you all do is very important. And I was like, oh my God, he has no idea who he's talking to. He had zero clue what the conference was about, whatever, because his underlining core message, he didn't care. And he literally said, I'm sure what you all do is very important. No one even noticed it because he was such a good speaker. But that was his price point. You can't do that if you're a trainer. If you're a trainer and I'm coming in, you're a pharmaceutical sales rep or you're an AI firm and you're trying to make your engineers a bit more palatable because maybe they don't know how to talk to senior leadership or they don't know how to talk to clients, and you hire me to come in and help them with their communication skills, how to simplify complex ideas. I can't just give you my training modules. I have to learn your business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second one. But that might be a $5,000 price range or a $10,000 price range if you're really good.
So if you need
for a trainer,
if you need to do more work, more preparation as a trainer, make what you do tailored to the business.
Yeah.
Why do you think the market prices so differently? Is it perceived value of
It's
motivation?
less glamorous. It's
It.
insane. Well, first of all, it doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't make any sense. But so many of our industries don't make sense that way.
But I was asking, do you think motivation is a sexy topic? People love going on YouTube, watching a motivational video for a second, thinking, yeah, I'm going to go for this. But if you would say to someone, okay, actually, now sit down and watch this step-by-step video on how to do X, Y, Z.
With homework and assignments.
It's putting the cart before the horse and saying, actually, I'll come back to that tomorrow. And I think, so this is my hypothesis, and I'd love to get your take on it. The feeling we get of talking about our goals gives us the same internal feeling as achieving them. So if you turn around to your friends and you say, oh man, I'm going to do this and I've got these plans, you're getting the same dopamine release as you would be as to doing the work. Whereas sitting down on YouTube, knowing that you need to go through a curriculum for 6 hours, people always say, have you done that work? I just haven't got the time. But then when you go and look at their screen time, they've spent 2 or 3 hours on Instagram. Why? And I think that there's that link between social media consumption and listening to that motivational speaker. It's easy, it's passive, your brain's not having to do much, but it's ramping you up.
So let me first compliment you on the correct use of the word hypothesis instead of theory. So first of all, bravo, Joe, because I don't know why that's always been a pet peeve of mine. People use the word theory like, oh, that's just an idea I have, but that's actually like a theory is actually not that. That's a hypothesis. And so good for you for using the word hypothesis correctly. I'm going to plug a podcast that's been around for 25 years. Okay. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Who's it by?
And the New England Skeptical Society. It's been around for, like I said, since I started listening to it in like 2004.
I was very young then.
Yes, and they're all about critical thinking. They talk about, like, it's not the theory, it's like an actual theory, and that's where I learned the difference between theory and hypothesis. Total tangent. There's a couple of reasons, and Joe, I think you're stumbling on something with your hypothesis. That is, it's easier and it is more motivational. And typically, it's a larger audience. So there's an exposure component. So if I'm a keynote speaker, and I'm going to be real with you, I'm trying to get more into the keynote world because I'm more in the training world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to a conference and they're going to use my name to try and sell tickets. There's also probably going to be 400 or 500 people in the room, depending. Maybe it's 100 people, right? But there's going to be a larger audience. As a trainer, nobody will ever know because you're going inside of a company and they're saying, my 20 people come here. This is what you're doing instead of work today. So even though the trainer will probably have more of an impact on the success of a business, the speaker has more exposure of the business.
So
there's
it's
also
sort of
different
like
audience.
business to
There's
business versus direct to consumer B2C to an extent. Because
ish.
I suppose
Yeah.
you could train the general public on something. You could go out and say someone like Simon Squibb. He goes. You familiar with him? Goes up to people. What's your dream? And we've actually had two of his business partners on the podcast. But his audience is the general public. So technically,
Yeah.
he could probably. I mean, he does it. He goes and produces hour-long YouTube training videos where he'll sit down with a key person of influence, another influencer, someone who's been successful, and then gets their take on it. And I imagine, I suppose, what I'm getting to with this, if you were to look at the motivational content, it's going to get way more reach. It's going to get way more awareness.
Yeah,
But then
because
the
it's easy.
nuance, the real detailed work that takes hours of research, statistics, theory, some of your hypothesis as well. But when you bring that all together, your brain has to program everything. And you're trying to take people through a journey when you're delivering this so they don't zone out. If I just give you a video that has David Goggins, The Rock, uh, Khabib Nurmagomedov just amping you up with various different quotes,
Million
it's going
views.
to be
Million
easy for
views.
you to. I can use the transition of music to make it sharp.
David Goggins will be Joe's next guest, just so everybody knows. So make sure to like and follow. We'll have David Goggins here. Maybe he'll get sick right before it happens. Who knows? But
Will
just
manifest.
getting you that algorithm bump. Getting you that algorithm bump.
So for you, what's the big motivation between moving away from being a trained speaker versus a motivational speaker?
Well, let me address the third realm of speaking, and then I'll tell
Okay.
you why I'm transitioning. Because it's not so much doing one or the other, but doing all. This is the other big thing. The other big kind of speaking business is as a host or MC. And that's a host or MC for public events, for sporting events, but also for conferences. There's a lot of conferences who are more and more realizing that because conferences are always super boring, that they need someone to bring up the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And being a good MC is not just being a good personality. This is also the least lucrative because typically no one sees a value in an MC until you see someone doing it well. Most people are like, if you're running a conference, and I get this all the time. What'll happen is like, oh, we'll get Sarah. Everybody loves Sarah. She's really funny. She's going to be the host. Well, guess what? Sarah has no idea how to like engage a group of 400 people because she's never done it. And Sarah's just going to be like reading bios. But what else does an MC do? That's what people think. Oh, you're just introducing people. So that other realm of business has a potential for growth, but no one sees it. And I'll give you one other really good example of this, Joe, and then I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm a member of two speaking agencies, one in Canada and one in the US. And in both of those agencies, in our initial conversations, I say, just so you know, I also MC. And every time I MC events, people absolutely love it. They call me back every year. And both of them said, like, oh man, like one of them was like, in 20 years, I might have been asked for an MC like 5 times. It's all about the keynotes for the speaker business because no one wants to pay or see value in it. But once they see it, they want it all the time. I don't know. You were going to ask me something. Go ahead.
I remember looking into DJing, and DJs are very similar to MCs. A good DJ commands hundreds of thousands, but it's the energy of the room. So I feel they're like the conductors of their environment, and I think what you're leaning into is an MC. You have a pretty shit MC. Everyone's here or nice,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
an MC that pulls you in You could be like a comic on that stage where, hey, you, where are you from? Okay, Ivan's here with us today. And Ivan, how far have you come in? You came all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona. Guys, is there anyone in this audience who's come further than him? Can I see a show of hands? Where have you come from, sir? Oh, I've come from Mexico City. Oh my God. And then you start speaking Spanish to them.
Engaging the group.
That's it. And I can see it with the value being there. It's the same as go watch sports, go watch the UFC, or, and we'll talk about it in a moment, WWE. Without commentary, you don't want to watch it. They're the MCs of wrestling, of
Yeah.
the UFC. So my kind of side question here to you is, how have you intertwined the art of pro wrestling into your business?
Well, let me first address. I'll tell you a little bit about the pro wrestling and stuff like that. Let me take a sideways route to answer that question really quick,
Please
because
do.
what you said is so true. That a good, I always say, people ask people, why do you wash cars? It doesn't really affect the car. It's totally aesthetic, because the aesthetic of something matters, and the aesthetic of events is what an MC does. It makes it's the polish that few organizations have.
Of course.
You try and tell that to someone, they're like, we're fine. Because no one's done it. But like, if we all, could you imagine? Oh my gosh, Joe, imagine if the smartest people in the world were the best speakers. Dude, we'd be on Neptune. We'd have sat, but instead some dude in his car telling you that the earth is flat is like, oh my God, starts a movement. That is how important communication is, especially moving forward. Because Joe, you're an AI. Think about this, and I tell this to people all the time. How can you make yourself AI proof? How can you make it? So like, if you think about this, in the next 10 years, do you think more and more of our jobs are going to be automated or less?
Absolutely more.
Absolutely more. And if you think about it, knowledge. What are you going to tell me that I can't watch in a YouTube video or look up for myself in seconds? So therefore, why you? Why you? What do you bring to the table that I can't find out for seconds or won't be automated? And I think for me, it's your ability to connect, communicate, and inspire. And if you look at professional wrestling.
Good transition.
Thank you very much. It's almost like I do this as a job, right? It's weird, right? It's weird. All right. If you look at professional wrestling, they figured out something about persuasion, because persuasion is not a logical endeavor. People think that persuasion should be logical. But if that worked, debates would win. Like, debates would work. Evidence would convince people. But that evidence, logic is not persuasion. It's part of it, but not all of it. So in wrestling, here's what they did that figured out persuasion. And just so you know, my style of training is very much that I don't talk about a Barack Obama or Steve Jobs or some played out examples of good public speaking, because you have never gone, hey, Joe, you want to go get a couple of beers and watch an Obama speech? No, no one has ever said that. It's like, oh, you guys want to watch the next Apple keynote? I'm going to have a party. We can all watch the Apple keynote. No one has ever said that. You take
Depends
little
if you're
excerpts
high
and
on
you
a
say,
Friday night at 2 a.m.
dude, I've never tried that. Let's go watch a keynote like high AF. You're just like, dude, this is profound.
Yeah, it's just
Anyway,
Joe Rogan conspiracy theory rabbit hole for 3 hours.
That's right. Let's do it. Let's get weird, man. So but you think about, people will go like and literally like have a party to watch wrestling. Movie theaters, the WWE is now like, will push live events in movie theaters, which is a great, interesting business model. Why? It's because of the emotional appeal that they have. So wrestling figured out how to communicate in many ways that we don't appreciate. And one of them is in persuasion. So back in the day, like I'm talking the birth of wrestling, when it was like still like local camps, there was faces and heels, good guys and bad guys. And what would happen was, when they would introduce good guys, 50-50 chance that the audience would like them, because it is very difficult to make people like something. So what did they do? They flipped it on its head. And to this day, they still do this. They always introduce the bad guy first. Why? Because it is very easy to make people dislike something. And to this day, go watch wrestling. You know what happens? Some guy's going to get on that stage and get the audience like rabid, like so angry. And then literally anyone that comes out to fight him, they cheer for. So how does this apply to persuasion? How does this apply to communication? Because Joe, you're not going to go and pitch your business services to like a company and be like, you suck, you're ugly, you don't use a toothbrush. You can't do that. So what can you do instead? So here's how this applies to your communication. And here's the non-logical elements. Have you ever heard of the word psychological reactance?
I heard about it last week and I researched it.
When
but
we had
yeah,
a
with
it's
the
fascinating, right? Okay.
audience.
Okay. This is everyone, you've all experienced it. It is inherent in human behavior. It has been studied for over 50 years. It seems it's across language, across culture, and it seems to be inherent in human behavior if you look at the research of it. Okay. And this is how everyone has experienced it. If you've ever thought to yourself, don't tell me what to do. You're 15 years old, Joe. It's cold outside. You're going to go hang out with your friends. You're about to grab your jacket. And your mom says, hey, put a jacket on before you go outside. What is your first reaction? Yeah, exactly. Don't tell me what to do. No. Why? Because, and so you know what? I'm going to go without my jacket and be cold because I don't want you to feel like I'm following your orders. Right? And everyone here has just had that moment of, Joe.
You need the video on to see that reaction there.
Everyone here had the same reaction you did. Every single listener was like, fuck you.
Or you just did a little DX chop.
Yeah, like, no way. Yeah, exactly. That's psychological reactance. Psychological reactance essentially says when you don't have the freedom to choose, you will resist whatever is offered to you, even if it's what you want. So how does that apply to persuasion is this. Most people try to sell benefits. They try to really prove why you should choose something. But the more you do it, the more skeptical you get, the more resistance you get. Instead, you got to do what wrestling does. You got to make some bad guys first. And here's the truth. Whether you like him or not, Donald Trump leverages reactance. He doesn't know he's doing it, but he leverages this all the time. Why? Here's what you do. Here's the secret to persuasion. Well, he doesn't realize he's doing it. He just does it because it works. Like he doesn't, like if you say, oh, how do you use reactance? He's like, I don't understand that word and I can't spell it, right? He won't be able to do any of those things, but he uses it to great effect. And so do many good politicians before him, during him. And here's how it works. It's almost impossible for me to convince you that my idea is better than others. I might convince a bit of the room, but not everyone. However, if I spend my time making some bad guys, like in wrestling, you could do this idea, but here's all the problems with it. You could do this idea. Here's all the problems with it. Or you can do what I'm recommending. Here's all the benefits to it. And not as many problems. You will be way more likely to choose mine because you think that you have the illusion of choice. You overcome reactance by giving them options, and those options have pros and cons. Most options have a lot of cons. Yours just happens to have the most pros. And Donald Trump, to that point, you will see, what does he spend most of his time doing? Is it explaining his well thought out ideas? His policy? No. He spends a lot of his time telling you why all the current options suck. And then what does he say? We're going to fix it. But this idea is better. And whether you like it or not, it convinces a lot of people. I'm actually writing, my second book is going to be on the dark side of communication.
What was your first book on?
It's just it's exploring the hidden secrets of communication through professional wrestling, lie detection, psychology. That's where the professional wrestling and everything came from. It's a very tactical book. The second one is going to try and use the dark side for the good. So I'm exploring the communication tactics and tricks of cult leaders. Forget salesmen, forget CEOs. Who is more persuasive than a cult leader? Hey now. Con men like Bernie Madoff. How do they? Yeah, I'm exploring those kind of dark realms of communication that we don't think of as good communication, and seeing if we can take the tactics and make it into things that we can use in our day to day. When my lazy ass gets around to finishing it. So right now, I'm hoping so I work on it. I go through spurts. I don't know if you're this way, but I go through spurts of working and then spurts of forgetting. So right now I'm in the spurt phase where I'm not consistently writing the book. I'm doing little parts of it. I'm hoping in the next year or two. But part of me is thinking, and Joe, This is another thing. I'd love your audience to comment on this, and I'd love your perspective on this. Is it more worthwhile to do a book or to make a video course? I know we could companion them,
What is?
but let's ask ourselves,
Uh-huh.
when was the last time you bought a literal book to learn? So what do you think? And for the listening audience, I think we've just lost Joe for a minute. So until he comes back, I am going to talk to you, my listening audience. Here's the pros and cons. A book seems to give you more validity. If you write a book, you're an author. You can say bestseller. Even though a lot of people or a lot of us will buy books but not really read them because they have that gravitas to them. They also seem like they're more involved. There's more work potentially perceived in writing a book. The information seems to be more trusted if you buy. But I think because so much video is YouTube, that if you were to do like a video course, it might not give you that same aura of expertise. So, as an audience member, what do you think? As an audience member, if you had to choose, yes, you could do both, but if you had to choose between both, which would you choose? And just so you know, Joe is coming back. But until he's back, I want to bring up another idea. Because one of the things I like to do whenever I'm on podcasts, hey, Joe, you're back. Just so you know, I haven't shut up the whole time. In fact, I've been talking to the audience. No, don't worry. Just cut this part out. They'll never even know. You can see my recording afterward. But one of the things I like to say with audiences is I always like to give a tactic whenever I'm with anyone. You know, I like to give away most of what I do for free, just because I'm on a mission to end boring. My book is called End Boring. I want to end boring meetings, end boring conversations, end boring presentations, okay? And I want to give you a tactic that the audience can use, but you and I are going to demo it. Is that fair?
Amazing. Let's go for it.
All right. Imagine we've never met before, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, Joe, how are you? And you say, what does the typical person say?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Exactly. And then I say, I'm good. And we have nothing left to say to each other. That's it. Conversation over. So then you're like, how's your day going? It's hot outside. It's cold outside. And right away you're like, how do I get out of this boring conversation? This is so uncomfortable. Right? So what can you do instead? Because if you think about it, in a world of AI, the way you make yourself AI proof is through good communication. Because that can't be replaced, at least not for the next 10 years. You might know more about this than me, Joe. So here's what I want the audience to do, and here's what I do all the time. And we did this before, right, Joe? We did this before.
We did, yeah.
Right before or right after you say, I am fine, how are you? You need to reveal something. A simple, low stakes, very normal, don't try and be clever thing, and I'll give you some examples in a moment. That's going to give the other person something to talk about or something to ask you questions about, and it's going to be a side conversation. It's going to lead to a little tangent. And I will also give you some examples of me doing this in action. Mm-hmm. You literally use the phrase as what this is one of the strategies. You say, looking forward to blank. Right? So what are these things you reveal? Don't try and be clever, and don't make it about work because nobody cares. You going to go to the gym, meeting a friend for coffee, going to make lunch, just had lunch. These little things like this will lead into little side conversations. So, hey, how are you? Pretty good. Just having my second cup of coffee this morning. How are you? Pretty good. Just finished my coffee. How are you doing? The chances are someone's going to bring up an opinion about coffee. Oh, I need another cup. Oh, just the first. Like, it can lead to side conversations. Mm-hmm. Does it work all the time? No, we're human beings. Not everyone is the same. Does it work a lot of the time? Yes. So this is one of the easiest ways that you can become quote unquote charismatic, really good at ice breaking, really good at networking, is by doing this little reveal. Joe, you had a question.
You answered it. I was going to ask, so for the listeners, what is the big benefit to it? And you said it's to be more charismatic, to be more revealing, serious, to actually show intrigue, which I think a lot of people struggle with. And it's always, as you said, it's being situational with your environment. What can you pick up? Oh, we spoke about your shirt. I love your shirt. Hey, that's a really cool inflatable beer bottle you've got there. Where did you get it from? And then there's probably a story about it. You're probably going to tell me, so I tell you what, I went to this sporting event, or
leads to a conversation.
There we go. And it's just being observant with with what you have. It's bring what I call it the third element. So it's you, me, and then it's what do we have around us. So quite often before conversations, and I didn't use this with you, but sometimes indirectly, if we have a podcast, I'll naturally research whoever's coming on, learn a little bit about them. Oh, you're from so and so. I was thinking about going there. Have you got any recommendations? Of course, I've got recommendations. And oh, I saw you were in this country recently. I was there too. What did you like most about it? It's those flow states that can really, instead of just the classic, hey, how you
And
doing?
and I'll level it up even more. I'll level it up even more because make statements first before the questions. And that's what you did with me before we started today. So, for
Could you give the
example,
audience an example
this
of
is,
what you mean?
yeah, absolutely. So, for example, this is something I do all the time. And this is a simple test that anyone in the audience can do. If I meet you in person and I say, where do you live? What part of town do you live in? There's always a little thing of like, oh, I don't know if I want to tell this person where I live. There's always a little bit of that, especially if you're a woman too, right? Oh, so, or personal questions. So are you married? Do you have any kids? You kind of don't want to answer those questions with someone you just meet. There's a little bit of like, I don't know if I want to reveal information. But if I say, oh, I live in this part of town, how about you? People will just tell you without any hesitation.
Do you
This is
think
a really
that
interesting experiment to try
do you think
because
that
I
falls in line
revealed
with
some
the
information first.
does that fall in line with reciprocity? So you feel inclined, you feel as though you have to give an
Yes.
answer back to someone.
Yeah. And well, no, here's the thing. It's not have to. Reciprocity, yes. But when people volunteer information, you're just inclined to give information too because you've already started sharing.
Sure.
So I'll give you another. This concept, this very simple concept, came from a few discussions I had with in Canada, which is
Uh-huh.
where I'm from. What's up, Canadian listeners? We have this thing called the RCMP, which is kind of like the US's, the United States FBI, which might be, I'm not sure what it is in the United Kingdom. However,
MI5,
I
MI6.
interviewed, sure, I interviewed a few of their professional interviewers, quote unquote, essentially interrogation experts. And I said, what's the difference between what you see on TV and what happens in the real world? And one of the things that came up was, in the on TV, we're like, where were you? It's a lot of interrogation. We're asking questions. The reality is, most interrogations start with us doing a lot of talking and revealing a lot of information. Because sooner or later, as we're talking, the other person is just going to start jumping in. Because when we reveal information, people feel inclined to add on to that information. Because right away, you've reduced the barrier to entry, so to speak. Versus saying, if I say, where do you live? Where are you? Where were you? There's a little bit of like, why do you want to know? A little bit of, dare I say, reactance. See the callback?
There we go.
And so one of the things I always tell people, if you try and break the ice with someone by just asking questions, you are interrogating them. And no matter how much you think it works, there's always going to be a little edge, and you'll probably just get a lot of one-word answers. So Joe, if we both went to Reykjavik, right? And I say, oh, I know you're from Reykjavik. I just went to Reykjavik there. I stayed in this neighborhood. Oh, I went to this restaurant. It was amazing. They will probably just jump in with like, oh, I've never been there. Where's that? Or I love that restaurant. And right away the conversation flows because you have revealed something.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the subtle, super secret ways. And let me give you, I know we're almost out of time, but I got to give you this really interesting anecdote about this. So this was a conference, because a lot of people will find, here's a study with 5 people, therefore I'm going to tell it like it's truth. Andrew Huberman, love him or hate him, has fallen into that trap. Well, he's fallen into that trap many times when he speaks outside of his realm of expertise.
Uh-huh.
And he's constantly talking outside of his realm of expertise now.
Uh-huh.
So take him with a grain of salt, because he very much will like, a study found, and then he'll tell you that that's like it's a truth. If a study finds something, it is not the truth. It means we have to try and tear it apart for the next 5 years, and then we can say if it's truth. Now, when I research an idea, I try to keep that in mind, and I don't just say, I did this once, it works. Instead, you have to try it over and over and over, and then you have to find evidence for it. So let me give you some anecdotal evidence, which is not real evidence, but it is anecdotal. And here's another harsh truth. Joe, listening audience, listen very close to this. Stop washing your dishes for a minute. Okay, they're with us. An anecdote is not evidence, but it is more convincing than evidence. One personal experience with a food, a medicine, whatever, is all it takes to convince most people to do it. Andrew Huberman says he cold plunges 3 times a day, and so does Joe Rogan. Done. Benefits done. I'm going to try it. Anecdotes. So here's an anecdote in my attempt to try and convince you to do this strategy. I had a friend of mine that met Bill Clinton like 20 years ago. And I put 2 and 2, this after the fact, And I asked him, like, because this is when I was starting my communications training career. I was like, what did he do? He's like, that guy is like the most charismatic person I've ever met in my life. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, he told me, and this was like a phrase he uses, and I say this in my seminars. He says, Bill Clinton makes you feel like you already met him and you forgot. Like he's that good at breaking the ice. I talked to my friend for maybe like 2 hours. And I was like I fully interrogated him. No. Let's go back. Let's do it again. What did he say exactly? What do you remember? Let me write it down. And so here's what came out of that conversation. Bill Clinton, he went to watch Bill Clinton speak. And this is after he was after president, so after the controversy. But he was doing this big speaking engagement. You pay to go watch Bill Clinton speak. And at the end of it, he walks around. Huh? It was motivational, yeah. And honestly, he probably charged like at least $100,000 for it.
Yeah.
At least. So anyway, he goes around the room and he says hi to everyone. He spends like an hour just walking around the room and saying hi to people. So he goes up to my friend, and my friend's like, Mr. Clinton, it's very nice to meet you. How are you? And Bill Clinton goes back. He's like, did you try the steak or the fish? And my friend's like, the steak. He's like, man. And then he just talked about the steak for a few minutes. And then they got into talking about barbecuing. And then they got into, what kind of barbecue? And they had this whole little, like, very fun conversation until someone was like, Mr. Clinton, we have to leave now. He's like, oh, listen, God, it's been great. And he was like, he even gave him, check out that barbecue I told you. He's like, yeah, I will. And he left. And my friend was like, oh my God, is Bill Clinton my friend? Is Bill Clinton my friend? Like, he felt like he was like, do I have his number now? Like, it messed with him so much because he connected with him so well. That was Bill Clinton giving reveals of information. He did it as a question, but he talked about the steak that he loved right away, which led them into this whole side tangent.
So a summary then for the listeners, if they could take, and this is going to be very difficult, but one detailed nuance away from what you've just shared now with regards to effective communication.
Yes.
How could you package everything you've just said into one sentence?
Let me give you 3 tactics. I'll give you 3 quick tactics. First, specifically to breaking the ice like we've been talking about. Don't ask questions. Reveal something low stakes. Hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? Is what you say when you don't want to talk to people. Reveal something that you're looking forward to, you've just done, or you've observed in the room. Man, it's really hot in here. How are you? Oh man, have you tried the appetizer is delicious, the way you were talking about, Joe. So that's 1. Reveal information right before or right after you say, I'm fine, how are you? Hey, how are you? Pretty good. Just on my 2nd cup of coffee. How are you? That's it. Low stakes. If you try and be clever, you look fake. So that's 1. Reveal information to break the ice right there. Second thing, understand that anecdotes are not evidence. This is why people tell you storytelling is so powerful, because stories are just long anecdotes. If you want to convince people, give an anecdote. Anecdotes are not evidence, but they are more convincing than evidence. This is what all scientists forget because they're trying to be as honest as possible. And this is why con men work. They speak in anecdotes. I tried this new workout. Now I got a 6-pack. Shit, I should try that workout. And lastly, if you are doing all the talking, how do you know anyone is listening? Joe, in our conversation today, and to your credit, it would have been very easy for me to just be like, here's why I'm so smart and I'm the expert in everything. But notice how many times I tried to not just engage you, but engage your audience by asking them to give me information. Nothing you ever do will engage a group of people more than letting them talk to each other.
So well said. Ivan, to close out, where can people find you and what's next for you? This has been a pleasure.
Well, Joe, thank you for having me on the podcast. Public Speaking Lab. If you go on Instagram, Public Speaking Lab. I'm always experimenting with ideas of communication, hence why it's a lab. Instagram, Public Speaking Lab. My website, publicspeakinglab.com. LinkedIn, Public Speaking Lab. And my book is called End Boring. Published by Public Speaking Lab. So you can find that on Amazon. And next for me is building, and we should do a part 2 because I never talked about the strategies I'm using to transition from trainer and MC into keynote. Because I actually discovered some really interesting ways to do it. But hey, let's do that as a teaser. And if the audience likes it, we'll have another interview later.
We'll run it back. Maybe in person, Toronto, America, the UK,
Come
South
fly to
America,
Toronto.
US.
Maybe I'll go to sunny England.
Or we'll find a middle ground.
I'll meet you in Reykjavik.
That is the middle to us, so perfect. Ivan, been a pleasure. Thank you.
Joe, it's been awesome. It's been a great conversation, and thank you to you and your listening audience.